Yes.
Okay. Oh, okay. That's fine. So, really, thank you guys and girls for being here, especially the California and India different time zone. But and thanks Chitu and Manoj especially to suggest this. And this is a very important topic. And I'm not an authority on it, but I have since I retired, I've delved into deep dive into the research and books and everything. And I learned something which is against the mainstream belief and dogma, and I thought it's very important. And it explained why we have all this pandemic of chronic diseases like all over the world. So insulin resistance is very very common, but is undiagnosed, unknown, and it's very silent, slow, and deadly. So that's why I'm going to kind of briefly give you my what I have learned, my insight, and then you may have your own opinion. You may have know some of these, or you may not know. But I just wanted to kind of share quickly. So let's see, insulin resistance. Okay, oh, sorry. Where did I go back? Okay. So pandemic, because it's all over the world, right? India, China, US is like globally 20 to 40%, USA 40 to 60. But if you really look at metabolic dysfunction, almost as Chitu was saying, 88% of Americans are metabolically unhealthy. And that is part of the problem. And slow because it takes so many years of insulin resistance before you get diabetic. And actually the hyperinsulinemia is another precede 5 years or even longer. So unless somebody checks your insulin level fasting, you will not know whether you have insulin resistance or not. So it's not a recognized diagnosis. There is no, I think we don't have any ICD code for the insulin resistance. Metabolic syndrome is the closest thing, but metabolic syndrome only have like a criteria, but the insulin resistance is very wide. And it's root cause of all major non-communicable diseases, and that's why it's so important. And death from, as you know, the non-communicable disease is going up 45 million a year in 21 and climbing. So that's why it's so important to work at this. And as you can see, insulin is elevated almost like 10-15 years before your glucose start going up. So if you just rely on fasting blood sugar, you will miss this for so long, right? And the process and the whatever the inflammation starts as soon as your insulin level goes up beyond a certain level. So it's very very crucial. And we don't check insulin anymore, but I started checking since I got. It's very very important. Everybody should get their fasting insulin checked. And so these are the diseases, and I'm sure there is no question about it has this insulin resistance, metabolic syndrome, or metabolic dysfunction. They are all processes basically, and it's responsible for everything: diabetes, dementia, obesity, fatty liver, stroke, hypertension, also a mental disorder, autoimmune disease, PCOS, erectile, and so many things. And as you can see, this is from Women Heart Initiative study, long time. So diabetes is 1000%, metabolic syndrome is 500%. And look at smoking. Compared to smoking, it's much higher. And if you combine hypertension, obesity, metabolic syndrome, diabetes, like they're all part of one process, the risk of coronary disease is explosively high, right? 12-fold increase in cancer with insulin resistant, 5-fold Alzheimer, and death from coronary 6-fold. So these are the new, really the disease, the diabetes, hypertension, whatever we do, coronary, those are manifestation in true sense. They are not really real diseases. These are the processes at the cellular level: insulin resistant, oxidative stress, inflammation, mitochondrial dysfunction. Mitochondria is such important, and a lot of your problem could be traced to mitochondrial damage, and leaky gut. All right. Then and they're all interrelated. You can see arrow going every direction, right? So somebody says leaky gut is the main issue. Somebody says insulin, but it's all kind of goes together. If you have one, it kind of fits to each other. So what causes a metabolic dysfunction? That's a big debate, right? Somebody says genetic, somebody says it's sugar, somebody says meat, saturated fat, and lack of activity, laziness, and all kind of things, right? So there's no agreement. So the one is the calories and calories in and calories out model, right? So that is the old model. Will still, even WHO still thinks the fundamental cause of obesity is energy imbalance between what you take, what you consume, and what you expend, but which is totally false. It doesn't work like, because we have homeostasis. So and gluttony and sloth means everybody blames, if somebody is obese or diabetic, they say you are lazy and you love to eat and you gorge on the food. So they blame the patient, but it's a hormone. And eat less and move more movement started in the US, and it didn't work. Kids are still getting fat and everything. So what is this nutrition paradox? So this guy in 2005, Benjamin, he went to slums of Brazil, one of the, I think, Sao Paulo or somewhere. And there where he see in the clinic, they were skinny children, right? Because they were malnourished, they're poor slum neighborhood, and they were like very skinny. And the mothers were fat, right? So you say, how can it be, and everybody was thinking, well, how can the mother, unless you think the mother is eating all the kids' food, right? So that's not true. So the mother was obese. Both were what you call nutritionally or calorie deprived or energy deprived, but one was fat and one was skinny. And I'll explain to once you understand why it happens. So it's not that they were eating more, but whatever she was eating, it was getting deposited as a fat because of insulin. And so this is the Hazdas of Tanzania. They walk a lot, right? They walk about 12, 13, maybe 20, 30 kilometers a day. And their energy expenditure was same as office workers sitting in one of the USA's town. So that tells you that just because you exercise a lot, you're not going to burn anymore, because you end up compensating by either cut down other work or just kind of your BMR probably goes up and down depending on what you eat and what you exercise. So it never works, right? So that's why this diet in America, right? Nothing has worked, right? Weight Watchers and this and that. So this is from Tufts University Review 2007. Low calorie diet for overweight patient does not work, and if it works, it's only short time, and then your hunger takes over. This is the study, Cape Town Marathon. 30% of them were obese or overweight. It's same as like general population. And you see a lot of these athletes and triathletes, they have fatty liver or metabolic dysfunction. It's because of the lot of things, diet and other related. So this is the guy, Gary Tobbs. He's a journalist, and he's the one who challenged this dogma of calorie in and calorie out. And he said obesity is not caused by that. It is caused by hormonal dysfunction, mainly the insulin. And he concluded that carbohydrate, not fat, are the main drivers of obesity. And he has written tons of books, and he's
The bacon and blue cheese olives good in there? That sounds great.
Can you hear? So
Manoj,
Can
Manoj, you
everybody
can
else
mute
please mute
everybody,
your
and
phone?
then
Otherwise, I will
Bharat
mute
can
everybody's
unmute.
phone.
I'll try one. Thank you.
Mute your phone, everybody.
Fresh orange juice, right?
Otherwise, I'm going to mute everybody. Let me just mute everybody now then.
okay.
Yeah, mute everybody.
Okay.
Bharat, you can unmute.
Yeah, no, I cannot unmute then. Once I mute, they will have to unmute themselves. I cannot unmute people. I can just.
You can hear me, right?
Yeah. Bharat is
Kai, you
fine,
gotta
but
decide,
Nitin
bud. Pull your tray
Ambani,
down. You want fresh toast? Okay.
there are a lot of people whose mic is on. Please.
Manoj, best way is to you mute all, and then Bharat can unmute himself, and whenever we want to talk, we'll unmute ourselves.
The 8:30 start this morning, not the 7:30.
I'm going to mute everybody, and
You did the 8:30
Bharat,
start,
then
not the 7:30.
you just do unmute yourself.
How do I do it?
I just muted everybody. So on your bottom taskbar, there is the audio and video sign. You just unmute your audio and video. Audio. Bottom left. Oh, you
Okay,
stop
good.
sharing. You stop your notes. Restart the note.
I'll restart it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just it was here.
Yeah, yeah. You are fine. You are fine. We can hear you now.
Okay, perfect. And you can see the slide, right?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. All right. So let me just go to the full screen. No. Oh,
ભરત
ah,
તે એન્સલ નો સ્પેલિંગ ખોટો લખ્યો છે હવે બધા એને કેન્સલ લખે છે કેન્સલ
I know. Hold on, man. Where are I going? I did the slide wrong. Full screen display option. Okay. What happened? What did I do? Sorry, guys. I just something I did. Hold on. You can see my thing.
Yes, we can see your screen. You just go
Okay.
to the slide that you were on.
I know that's what I was trying, but somehow mine is either locked or something. I did. Let me just redo it. If I quit, it will go away, right? I don't want to quit.
Yeah, yeah.
What did I do? Edit slide layout. View. Play. Okay. Hold on. I might have to quit and redo it again, I guess. Let me just see. Sorry. Okay. Let me open the keynote. Okay.
Okay.
No, hold on. I got to start from the beginning. Sorry. We were here. Pencil keys. Okay.
Okay.
Yes, you can see now, right?
Yes.
Perfect.
Go ahead.
Okay, good. Sorry. So the Ansel keys. This is the guy who really started whole thing about the cholesterol and diet and fat, right? So this was and I think this is talking about right after World War II, when it's a long story, but he was the main person responsible for this. Fat is causing the problem, cholesterol is causing the problem, and saturated fat is causing all your diseases, especially heart disease. So that's how it all started. And the thing was, this is the guy. So this was based on is a famous 7-country study, they call it, right? So actually this is 6 country, and there was also second study 7. So he went to, because a lot of Americans were dying from heart attacks and cardiac causes. So he says something is not right. So this is after World War II. So he went to all these countries, collected data on the diet and everything, and then this is observational study, right? And then he says the countries, which is this lower one, is the fat percentage, or saturated fat. And he says as your percentage goes up, from Japan was like 10%, and then this is the death of cardiac death, and then it just goes up. So that was his hypothesis, that fat is a problem, saturated fat is causing the problem. Now this was and he collected, actually he went to 22 countries, he collected a lot of data, and this was very influential guy, and he believed it. So when you put all the 22 countries which he had data, he did not publish, he only cherry picked the 7 which kind of tried to prove his hypothesis. So look at this, if you have all the data now, is widespread, there's no straight line, and that was a problem. And when somebody challenged, he just tried to, and it was horrible study. So he didn't look at, this is a guy, Weston Price, dentist from Cleveland, right? So when in in 30s or whatever, when he saw that a lot of these American kids were having dental issues, caries and gum, a lot of diseases. So he said, what, something is not right. So he thought nutrition has to something. So he went everywhere. He went all over the world. And beautiful, his work is like thousands of photos and documented, very detailed studies of all the populations with their native diet and this our American diet, or what you call it, processed food diet, and then he compare what's happened. And then his findings was, and this is what. So these are the actually studies about your macronutrient components. So the the top first one is total fat. The red is like saturated fat. Yellow is mono unsaturated, and the green is PUFA 6, means omega 6 polyunsaturated, and green is omega 3, and the purple is carbohydrate. And he compared all this. So Maasai from Africa, I'm sure everybody knows about them, right? So they eat a lot of, they only eat meat, milk, drink milk and blood. That's all they eat most. They rarely eat vegetables. So a lot of saturated fat and percentage. Look at that. Same thing, Inuits is like those Eskimos. Their saturated fat is very, very high because whales and all this, they don't eat vegetable, nothing. Kitavans, they eat, their carbohydrate is very high because they eat a lot of tubers like your sweet potatoes and all those things. And these are the Pacific Islanders. Look at, because of the coconut, their saturated fat is very, very high, and carbohydrate is not bad. And this is American diet. We have high carb, saturated fat is high, and look at the polyunsaturated fat is highest, and this line is a percentage of non-communicable diseases all over, right? And you can see the saturated fat has no correlation, right? So you can have high, this guy has, Inuits has tons of saturated fat, but the disease is low. But if you look at the PUFA, the 6, omega 6 polyunsaturated, look at, it's exactly mimic. Even so, if you see the Maasai has this one, the Inuits has a little bit more, and that, look at the graph is going up. Then this guy's down is going up, and then look at, shoot, America is like here. So I think that it's a polyunsaturated fatty acid, omega 6, which is a culprit, and the seed oils are the main thing. But even as of now, American Heart will say, oh no, the saturated fat, you should limit 10%, and they want you to eat more omegas, PUFA. They go on, this is healthy. And why is healthy? Because I'll come to that. So this tells you now, if Anselke had looked at Western price data, he would have said, he would have at least agreed that, listen, saturated fat is not cause of the problem, but he just wanted to push his agenda and everybody. So these are the, afterwards, these are studies were done. So Minnesota coronary experiment, and all these are the major studies. These are the 4 major randomized control, right? Because it's hard to do randomized control studies. And the Women Heart Initiative, which is like an observational study over many, many years. and you can look, you can see that absolutely there was no benefit. Once in a while, there was like in LA veteran study, they always cite the guys who push the saturated fat is bad and PUFA is good. They will cite veteran study because there is coronary artery disease was a little bit low, but cancer risk was high. So in each and every one, the cancer risk and total mortality was high if you replace saturated fat with PUFA or vegetable oils. So, and look at the, with 22 in Minnesota coronary experiment, it's a very interesting story on that, but we don't have a lot of time about it. So higher risk of death with each 30 milligram reduction in cholesterol. I mean, everybody thinks high cholesterol is bad and low, but this is what exactly, and this has been proven. So most of the PUFA study where they say the vegetable, they reduce cholesterol on average about 14%, but in almost all of them, the total mortality was up. And risk of, and whether one reason why cholesterol, lower cholesterol causing increased death is infection, because cholesterol is so important in preventing, right, immune function. So, And the Minnesota cohort is interesting study. This was a only good study in nutrition because they 9,000 patients, right, which is very in randomized control, and they did, I think, in nursing homes and somewhere where they could really control the diet. And this study was done in 1973, 60, right? It was, so what happened was Ansel Keys was also investigator in there. And because their result did not agree with their hypothesis, they did not, this study was not published until the author's grandson or somebody found the data in the basement, and then they reassess it, just like 2016 or something like that. So this was all hidden. And in old days, you could publish the studies, and I mean, you could do a lot of research, but you don't have to publish. Now I think laws have changed. So most of the time, a food company will do 10 study, and if 9 shows no benefit and 1 shows benefit, they will publish there, and other one will be just goes in the trash. So that was the issue with the lot of pharma and food, and had influence in this. So Nina tries out. She's amazing. She's another journalist, right? So I think it's so sad that the journalist had to come up with all these challenge, this dogma and hypothesis. None of the physicians or could do it. I think part of the reason was they didn't have nothing to lose, right? So if you are a researcher or in the big academic, and if you go against them, it's like if you go against Trump, you will be gone, right? So their funding was gone. They could not get any research money, nothing. So they could not, but Nina didn't have to. So she studied for 20 years. She knows, and you should look her up and read her books. She knows everything. Each study she has meticulously looked for last 20 years. And so this is what exactly had happened, right? As I said, the heart disease was going up from 1900 to 1950. And this guy said saturated fat. And this hypothesis was not even a proof, was accepted as truth before it was proven in public health. So USDA, then American Heart, even Harvard and Tufts, they all got into it. And he was such an influential guy. This was enshrined. So everybody still, it's very hard to tell somebody, hey, saturated fat is good, you can have it, and it's not going to cause a problem. So that's what happened. And self-correcting mechanism. So science, there a lot of scientists has opposed this, but they were kind of crushed or vilified or whatever, and they were in oblivion. So it's a sad story, but this is the story of our nutrition in the last 75 years. And this is what her statement has long promoted unscientific industry-backed stance on saturated fat and cholesterol, ignoring the evidence to the contrary. So this guy was in Time magazine, Man of the Year, and he buried this contradicting studies, and I just shoved down the throat this low-fat, high-carb diet and causing all these problems. And why it happened? I mean, power, repetition, confirmation bias, authority bias, echo chamber, and the nutrition science is such a poor science. It's one of the worst science because it's very hard to do randomized control trial, right? You cannot control what people are going to eat. And most of the studies, sometimes they get a food diary, 1 week diary, and that's how they figure it out, how much they eat. So how you remember 1 week, and they're not long. You cannot enroll a lot of patients, and you cannot follow for too many years. So it's difficult. So everybody is jumping up to even one study. It shows this, and they will just big news come, and people get so much confused that this is good or this is bad. So this is just an example. This is Professor Tim Nock, doctor. He's from South Africa. So he tweeted. So he himself was diabetic and everything, right? And he was following all these low carb, high carb, low fat diet, skim milk, and exercising. And still he was type 2. And he says, then he figured it out. Then he looked into the high. Low carb, high fat diet is the key. And he tweeted to a mother that it's okay to infant or whatever to give them a fat diet, high fat diet. And the dietitian got mad, and they got him to, they took his license. There was a big legal battle. Poor guy was destroyed 4 years. Finally, he was exonerated. But that tells you that even the dietitians are pretty strong, big food, academia, they all kind of silence him. And now he's written a book about ketogenic. It's very good textbook, actually. I have that textbook. So that tells you about how far they can. So this is the ophthalmologist, Dr. Chris Nobby. So he I don't know what town he was on. So he saw a lot of the American, they were losing eyesight from macular degeneration. And then he went into to deep dive and figure out that this PUFA and vegetable oils is part of the problem. So he's last 20 years he's been studying and he has a wonderful book telling him what is ancestral diet. If people eat, then that will be a problem. So he's author. He's trying to make that awareness of seed oils. She's another family physician. She's amazing. So she also has the same thing, and she's like she's a nutrition coach of LA Lakers and stuff. So these are the seed oils, right? Cotton, corn, and they used to call vegetable, not they call vegetable oil just to make it sound more healthy, but then they're not from vegetables, they are from seeds, right? And there are more than that, but these are the worst. They are olive, avocado, or coconut are not. They are from the fruit part, so they are different. So these oils are very dangerous, and I'll go over it in a minute. So unfortunately, even if you don't use those oils, all these snacks and almost everywhere, those oils are there because they're cheap and nobody wants to use anything. So look at, if you eat any of these, you're going to have enough of those PUFA to create problem. And you, according to Chris Knob, and when he did all this, if you look at the slide of PUFA, percentage was very, very small, right? So even if you eat a little bit, so ideally he says 4% of calories should be, not more than 4% of calories should come from those oils or PUFA, what do you call it? N6 PUFA, omega-6. And so 4% is like nothing, about 100 grams, about 2 teaspoons of oil a day. If you have more than that, it's going to create problems. So this is the, and this is the graph. Look at, so the vegetable oils, and if you know this, they call it seed oil. They were not in food's existence before 1900. They started around that time, maybe around a little bit early, before they were using it for industrial oil. They were using for machinery, and then the Crisco, Procter and Gamble developed Crisco around that. And you can see the perfectly linear graph. And vegetable oil, as vegetable oil consumption goes up, obesity. And I have other graphs, they're all same. Cancer, diabetes, you name it. It's such a, this kind of correlation you don't see with anything. And that's why so I'm convinced that, look at, this is the consumption. I put a graph of different countries. And look at it, everything is like a linear. It's like as if one guy who did some study, he was worried that everybody will think he fudged the data or something, right? Because it's very hard to get this kind of linear, so this is the, look at, as Norway, Israel, they all have a high, and as your things goes up, your diseases goes up. And this is the LA veteran study they are blaming, right? For the, they are citing that it helps to lower the cholesterol and decrease the heart. So that definite their cancer death was increased. So these are the final Nina's conclusion when she says, these are the, we know there is definite evidence from that they cause cancer. There is no doubt about that, seed oils. And then some evidence of this heart benefit, and stroke is consistently higher. And seed oils clearly cause inflammation, and that's part of the problem. So these are like, just to give quick chemistry things. So these are saturated fat, has all the carbons and hydrogen are like saturated. They're combined, they're happy. And here, because one double bond between those two C, you see that 2 hydrogen ions are missing. And because of that, the oxygen can react to them and causes oxidative stress. So that is main problem why this. So this is monounsaturated, so it's a one double bond. If you have poly, you have multiple double bonds. So there's much more likelihood of oxygen attacking those hydrogen and creating this oxidative stress, and which is the nowadays is dealing between oxidative stress and inflammation. Those are the main keys for all these disease processes. And these are the just example saturated fat, and you can see the butter and all those things have a lot of saturated fat. In the MUFA, the olive oil is good because it has MUFA. It doesn't have much. So the blue ones, omega-6, are the problem. So more blue. So this is soybean oil, sunflower oil, you can see. Now flaxseed, because it says, look at this, there's a lot of omega-3. So omega-3 kind of is helps. So omega-6 causes inflammation, and omega-3 causes like anti-inflammatories. It's kind of antidote. So if you have more so that's why flax seeds are so healthy, because it has all this, right? And coconut, where is coconut? Is it here? So coconut is all medium chain triglycerides, saturated fat, which are very also healthy. Okay, so this is how it causes, just brief. So what happens is, if you diet high in omega-6, linoleic acid, which is a PUFA, right? So vegetable oil has the most, because they extract everything out. Like soybean oil has probably 60 to 70% of their calories coming from the omega-6. So they're oxidized easily, I told you, because of double bonds. And when they oxidize, you get all these toxic products, HNE, oxidized LDL, oxalate, and they're all dangerous, and that damages the cell membrane, mitochondrial membrane, and DNA. So because of the damage in the membranes, what happens is that, and if you know about the chemistry, the Krebs cycle and oxidative phosphorylation gets impaired. So you cannot generate proper energy. So according to that Kate, I think Sanahan, she did. So if you have a saturated fat, your energy is 100% of what you are, like ATP generation, right? With PUFA is almost like 30% or something, because you cannot generate ATP through Krebs cycle. So what happens is you depend on the glucose glycolysis, which only generate 2 ATP. So what happens is, because of this damage, the efficiency goes down. So the cells are hungry because they're starved, even though they have all this energy for food. So what happens is, because of that, they all gobble up glucose as much as we can to just, and the blood sugar drops. So the brain, which does not have mitochondria, which depends on glucose only, right? It cannot burn fat, brain cells. So because they don't have enough energy, so brain is at top, right? So it signals the liver to produce more sugar, gluconeogenesis, triggers adrenaline to release stress hormone, causes hunger to eat. And that's why this cycle goes. Then pancreas, then the sugar goes up, pancreas release more insulin, and then you become insulin resistant. And this cycle goes on and on. And so that is the main pathophysiology for that. Now, this is the criteria. Bradford is a British guy. Correlation to causation, right? So most of the epidemiological studies, correlation never means causation, right? It could be just correlate. It doesn't mean it causes. But if you meet all these criteria, then correlation you can make it to causation. So so seed oil, you can see everything is so strong. There is a strength of association. Every time the seed oil consumption goes up, disease goes up. Consistency, very consistent, almost everywhere. Temporal sequence means before 1900, world did not have seed oil, and there was not much disease, and then everything went up. So, and compared to saturated fat, and LDL is so weak, and still we are demonizing LDL cholesterol and saturated fat. Another one is refined carbohydrate, and everybody knows about it, because rapid sugar spike will release insulin, and too frequent insulin surge causes hyper. So just like high, and then same thing with when. Let me go to the next slide. I'll tell you. Okay, so this is normal hunger. So how do you know you have insulin resistance, right? So before the testing, so one of the first sign is your hunger. Instead of normal hunger, is pathologic hunger. Pathologic hunger means it's sudden and urgent, because it's caused by hypoglycemia, and it could be relative hypoglycemia. It doesn't have to be. That's why it's confusing. Somebody says, and I have seen, and I'm sure you must have had patients who will tell, Doc, I get this hypoglycemia. I cannot tolerate blood sugar. And then we check their sugar is 100, 110. I say, oh, you cannot be hypoglycemic. But they are, because their brain needs that much sugar level in the blood to have enough energy. So they are always constantly hungry, and you have to eat right away. You have you crave for the sweets, carbohydrates. And if you don't eat, you get angry and irritable and headache and fatigue and everything. When normal, hunger goes away if you don't think about it, and it's temporary. And it's by ghrelin. Other one is by the epinephrine and cortisol. So that's first sign. And as you can see, as the glucose goes up, insulin shoots up, and then you have a glucose crash. So that will trigger hunger. And then, so every 3-4 hours, you have to eat. If you eat your cereal diet, cereal breakfast, I guarantee in about 3-4 hours, you'll get hungry again. If you eat 2-3 eggs, you will not get hungry till a long time. And so as soon as the insulin goes up, then it blocks the fat breakdown. So you cannot burn fat, and it just stores fat. So that's insulin job, and that's why we have problem. It doesn't matter if you eat more or less, it will not let you burn. And as you get more resistant, it just total block of fat burning. That's why you'll get fat regardless, even if you cut calories. So this is what in general, your insulin level, the normal people with breakfast, lunch, we have so many spike because we eat so many snacks. But if you're insulin resistant, insulin doesn't even drop, you get top curve. And that's why part of the problem, because they are always, if they're checked, your fasting insulin is very, very high if you're diabetic or pre-diabetic or even insulin resistant, right? And as you can see, the fat is the least likely to raise insulin level compared to, so that glycemic index, so carbohydrate is worse, even the protein can raise your insulin. So it's not just, so if you don't have enough fat in your diet, then you can have all the carbohydrate and protein, you will become insulin resistant, you will become diabetic, or at least you will have increased risk of atherosclerosis. So the fat is so essential. If you don't have enough fat, you will have problem. Your protein, so the muscle will burn the protein. The protein will turn into glucose by liver neoglenogenesis, and you'll have problem. So these are the main reason, right? I believe carbohydrate everybody knows, but I strongly, and it's by whatever evidence, the vegetable oil, the omega-6 things is one of the main driver. And we see it over and over in India also, right? We used to eat carbs, even village, right? Everybody had carb diet, right? But they didn't have problems many years ago, 50, 70 years ago, because those oils were expensive, right? We only could get peanut oil and sesame, and only rich people could afford it, right? In village, we were like, only time we eat oily stuff is like in Diwali or something, holidays where you can get some oil. So now everybody's, India people have money, and then all these industrial oils are so cheap, they are importing. India is importing like tons and tons, and then people are getting. So that number one, carbohydrate, we know the ultra processed food. So ultra processed food, America, 60% of the average calorie come from ultra processed food. And ultra processed food are the main ingredient, omega-6 vegetable oils or whatever, and the refined carbohydrate. Those are the main, which refined carbohydrate includes sugar. So we need to cut those down as much as we can. Reduce consumption of, another reason, if you don't have enough protein, saturated fat, and MUFA, then also you're going to have insulin resistance. So that's very crucial. People don't realize if you don't eat any of these, and you can eat all, but if you cut down this ultra processed food, and if you go on the natural diet, whatever diet, it will work. Doesn't matter, it could be vegan or whatever, or carnivore, but it will work as long as you eliminate this processed food, which is difficult, right? It's because everywhere you can depend on sedentary lifestyle. We know aging, loss of muscle mass as we get older. If you don't exercise, your muscles are weak, and that is creating problem, insulin resistance. Sleep, stress, and toxins. So this was the guideline in 1977 after Enselke, and they set up that calories should be, fat should be 30% or less, reduce saturated fat 10%, and increase carbohydrate 55-6%. And you can see that this guideline, it was just thrust upon America and then the whole world, and there was no scientific evidence to suggest that this was a good choice, and that created a whole problem, as you can see. And what was the controversy? All this, the industrial influence was there, lack of strong randomized control evidence, misinterpretation of data, and contradictory evidence was ignored. And this is where you see the perfect shape of, it's like, took like a rocket, the graph. After that, the guidelines, the obesity and all diseases is going up and up and up. So that guideline created problem, because we all thought the fat was bad, carbohydrate was good, and everybody was eating all this oat milk and skim milk and cereals and whole grain stuff, and that created problem. So this is Dr. Zoe Harcombe. She's PhD also on the health disease. She is from England. She examined all the randomized controlled trial and epidemiological evidence for before they introduce the guidelines, right? In 1977 USA and 1983 UK. And there was only like, these are the 2,467. There's only that many patients were studies before this, right? And there were no difference in all-cause mortality and non-significant difference in coronary artery disease mortality from this dietary intervention. And reduction in cholesterol was higher naturally, but that did not result in difference in coronary artery disease. So government dietary fat recommendations were untested in any trial prior to being introduced. And as you can see, the American diet, the beef and eggs and everything, milk is going down, right? This is your blue is a saturated fat is almost like same, but look at the obesity and everything is going up. So you cannot, same thing here. And as you can see, the vegetable oil is rising, saturated fat is still flat since 1970, and still we have more diseases. And this is another with sugar, vegetable oil. Actually, sugar consumption has gone down in US, but still obesity is going up. And partly, I don't know whether this sugar includes only sugar or refined carb. But what I'm trying to say that the seed oil is definitely correlated very strongly. So how do you know what insulin resistance? So one is, I told you about the hunger thing, the symptom. The other is the blood pressure. So everybody thinks the blood pressure is salt, but it's not. It's the insulin. That's, I think, one of the first signs. Somebody said, if your blood pressure is up and if your waistline is going up a little bit slowly, that's most likely is insulin resistant causing the problem. Hyperinsulinemia, right? Because it stimulates salt retention in the kidney. And this is the study, when they gave insulin, the pressure went up. Skin tags is one of signs, for your patients. So skin tag is also signs of insulin resistance. Then this acanthosis nigricans, those are the dark spots that can also suggest. So this is the metabolic, and I made this. This is not like this is my this is my idea of what the metabolic health should be, right? Elite optimal average. So really, you need a blood pressure. We know that waist to hip ratio, right? So waist is very important. It's not your BMI. Fasting sugar, everybody knows A1C, fasting insulin, which they don't do, but they should. So HOMA-IR, so it's an insulin resistant test. It's like fasting sugar times fasting insulin divided by 4 or 5 or something. A triglyceride important, HDL, triglyceride to HDL ratio. And this liver enzyme is because of fatty liver, high SSCRP for inflammation, CAC score for if coronary, if you want to check. And the CIMT is like your intima, carotid intima, intima thickness level. And there is also correlates with soft plaque. CAC correlates with hard plaques in the coronary, and that could suggest that you may have. So many, and as you can see, there is no LDL in there, right? LDL has never been part of the thing. Even in metabolic syndrome, they don't have LDL. Why? Because it's not good correlating. It's not a good biomarker, and still everybody's pushing LDL, right? So, and you can see ideally you want your sugar less than 80, right? But unless we goes 100, we don't even worry about patient. We tell him, oh, you have a little bit pre-diabetes, maybe some exercise, and don't eat fat or don't eat carbs, right? That's all we do. But the risk at this average level of if you're an average column, your risk goes up tremendously of all diseases. So ideally, I think optimal is if you can shoot for it, that's the best. Elite is like some of the top health would be. So these are the parameters. And as you can see, insulin resistance, again, risk of, so triglyceride, first is insulin resistance, the coronary disease. This is from Women Heart initiative. Triglyceride is there, apoprotein, LDL, look at LDL. It's way, way down. So that's why, is it really bad? So unfairly demonized as cause of atherosclerosis. This British Medical Journal, just 2016 meta-analysis says, no association between high LDL and heart disease. And none of the study directly prove that LDL causes or initiate atherosclerosis. Still, we are into the lipid-centric model, what we call it, right? Everything is a lipid, everybody focusing. Now we have more and more drugs to lower cholesterol. So, and it's not really a causative factor, it's a biomarker. It's just like one of the doctors, the cardiologist, is from Houston, Nadir Ali or something. He says, the LDL, is it a firefighter or an arsonist? So it's not arsonist, it's probably firefighter. It goes there after inflammation to repair the damage in the artery. And that's why we are blaming the firefighter. So, and as you can see, low LDL increases mortality, especially in people over 60 or 50. And this is from Framingham study. And the reason is because their immune function goes down, they get sepsis and other reason. Immune function, neutralize bacterial toxin. And other thing is, if you don't have enough, LDL carries all these fat soluble vitamins, and if you don't have it, that's a problem. Plus, it's deliver cholesterol to damaged tissue to help repair, and that's how they get trapped. They get oxidized and get trapped in the arterial wall, and we blame it on atherosclerosis causative. So as you can see, this was the patient with MI, and you can see this bell-shaped curve is not straight, right? So if you have very low LDL or a very high LDL, you are at lower risk. And this is the same study. As you can see, LDL of high, right? But if you have a high LDL and low HDL, then your risk goes crazy. Look at that. But if you have a high LDL and your HDL is low, HDL is high, sorry, you can see there's not much difference between LDL of 100, 160, and 220, the risk-wise. So the HDL, so everything I think important in relation, you cannot go by one thing. So this is a new study, January 25. So in diabetes, the people tend to have lower HDL, lower LDL, and they will have, even with the low LDL, as I said, if you have low LDL and if you have increased risk of coronary disease, if you are metabolically unhealthy, means if you have high triglyceride, low HDL level. So that high triglyceride and low HDL level correlates much better than LDL. And as you can see, this is low carb, high fat diet versus low fat diet, and all the parameters improve with the high fat diet. So these are the guidelines. Basically, you want to avoid all those refined processed food, eliminate liquid calories, alcohol as much as possible, eat whole food, wholesome as nature intended, adequate protein, mix animal and plant. Don't be afraid of fat, including animal fat and saturated fats. Eat more fiber, eat 1 to 2 meals a day, because the longer you fast, the insulin goes down. So that's why intermittent fasting is one of the new thing also that helps your diabetes insulin resistant. Fast for 16 hours or longer. And this is just so your carbohydrate intake we should cut down is 20 to 30%, and depending on where you are or at your metabolic health, you can go lower or higher, but at least it should not be more than 20-25%, because that's way. And then you need protein 0.8 to 1.2 gram per pound, or 20-25% calorie, and rest is fat, healthy fat. No need to count calories. So you must first reduce your insulin level by reducing carbohydrate, increasing healthy fat, and intermittent fasting. Unless your insulin level goes down, you're not going to lose weight, or you're not going to have any improvement in other metabolic function. And the carbs come with fiber, so eat like nature intended. Don't just take the fiber away, because when they do like processed carbohydrate, you eat snacks and cookies and crackers and all those, their fiber is gone and you only have is carbohydrate. Same thing, low fat milk, right? You take away the fat from protein, and that is also not good. Okay, so these are just all full fat, and I just give it like a simple, all full fat dairies are good. Olive, avocado, coconut, and you cooking oils, butter is, ghee is the best, probably butter and ghee. And then you have cold pressed olive oil, avocado, coconut MCT oil, because it has a good saturated fat. All fish, all unprocessed meats, all organic vegetables, all nuts, hemp seed, flax seed, chia seeds are good in good health, and all fruits, and avoid grains and legume, but we can, because this especially vegetarian, but try to do the whole grains. In buckwheat, millet, sorghum, those are the better ones. Then quinoa is a seed which used as a grain, so that's the best to do that. Eggs are the best because it's perfectly balanced. Egg yolk has highest anabolic effect. So means sometimes if you only eat protein, everything doesn't get turned into the building tissues and muscles and stuff. Look at 48% of the protein from eggs turn into building tissues. And meat and fish 32%. Egg white, if you have plant protein, only 16%. And the egg with yolk has as good as mother's milk anabolic effect too, because you need to have, that's why sometimes you eat all the protein and stuff and you don't build the muscle, and that's part of the reason. And it has omega-3 fat, it has choline, which is very important. And look at the amino acid, if you combine yolk and white, there's almost like all essential 9 amino acids are there. Same thing, all these vitamins, if you don't have yolk, look at white has almost 0 vitamin, because it's fat soluble vitamin, so you miss out. So some people used to, still they throw away the yolk because we have been told that it's cholesterol and it causes the problem. Absolutely not true. Cholesterol, in the dietary cholesterol, has nothing to do with the serum cholesterol. And so same thing with the vitamins. Exercise is another powerful longevity drug, they call it. And there are a few things. So everybody knows the physical, cognitive, emotional decline, it will slow down. So endurance exercises like your cardio, or so that is good for memory. And numerous randomized control trials showed that exercise-based intervention perform better than pharmaceutical intervention at reducing mortality from coronary, diabetes, and stroke. So it's very, very important to stress that. But people don't have patience, or they are not advised strongly about, So quickly about exercise, the endurance, like zone 2, which is like just little brisk walking, where you can kind of converse while you walk, without, and some out of breath. So that is very good for mitochondrial health and cognition and fat burning. Target rate about 70-75%. But what I really like, this VO2 max exercise, that's probably the best bang for the buck for the cardiorespiratory fitness, right? Because your heart muscles get weak and stiff, so it will improve cardiorespiratory fitness, muscle strength, fat burning, fatty liver, and metabolic. It works like magic, and you don't have to do too many times, right? Because you can sprint, jog combination, you can do HIIT training, you can do basically anything you can do where you push your heart rate almost 90 to 100% for 2-3 minutes, and then recover that long. Norwegian 4x4. So those are really, and you can start slowly and incorporate, because only zone 2, and it's better than nothing, but this one you get much better result, especially if you have weak muscles. And then you definitely do the weights and strength training for your osteoporosis and fall risk and a lot of different things, stretching, balance, and stuff. Sleep, absolutely important, because otherwise you have this cortisol and epinephrine goes up, and it gives this problem, and that is directly linked to the insulin resistance. So adequate, good quality sleep is good. Avoid caffeine, alcohol later, and drink dark, quiet, cool bedroom. And stress reduction. Stress also causes the cortisol, the same thing. So our body, mind, meditation, yoga, relaxation, massage, music, social connection, philanthropy, all those things will have effect, because your insulin and epinephrine level goes up, and your vagus will be stimulated. So that's relaxation more. In environmental, everybody knows pesticides, herbicides, food additives, trans fat, processed oils, plastic. And this is basically, so they are not a quick fix, but it takes patient commitment and perseverance, but payoff is huge. Once you make a decision, go forward, you will need to see where your current metabolic health fitness status, and then determine your goal, and then start slow and progress slowly to achieve that goal, and be realistic, have a realistic goal to avoid frustration, be flexible, understand the science, and make them enjoyable and part of your routine. What's the future hold? Well, this change in the paradigm shift is going to be a long movement. Grassroots, it has to come from grassroots, because the authorities are not changing. Even Zenina, as I told you, she's trying to change the US dietary guidelines because every 5 years, I think they do. Even recently they passed. She's giving them all these studies and data, but they're ignoring. They just keep on. And still American Heart still show it, telling us that eat less saturated fat and do this and blah, blah, blah. Right? So it's a long journey. What history tells us that it takes so many years and ever for new things to take effect, just like hand washing, right? Before the surgery, or your radical mastectomy. And that examples, and it takes ever and ever. That's why 75 years and still, I don't even know it's going to change, because there is so good news. Bad news is there is hope that things, more and more people at grassroots level, they are kind of stirring the pot, and hopefully things will change. And people are recognizing the benefits. And even though it takes a long, bad news is it takes a long time. The PUFA, they said the half-life of those is about 300 to 500 days. So if you cut down drastically, the benefit takes almost 4 to 5 years before you see the total benefit, right? And silver lining, the RFK Jr., he's believed that processed food and seed oils are issues. So let's hope he can do something. What can you do? You spread the word, you look into it, research yourself, tell your patient, your families, friends, and hopefully the word would spread around, and we will have a bright future. And that's it.
Hello, Manoj.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I interject, give
Yes.
my couple of minutes? Bharat, thank you very much for your excellent presentation, including a very good analysis of the issue, and
Yes.
more importantly, practical suggestions we can put into practice now. So,
Yes.
as far as the grassroots movement is concerned, you have all the attendees here. I'm pretty sure they are convinced, and they
Yes.
will
And
start
that's the
practicing.
reason. Yes.
Okay.
And that's the
Can you
reason
stop
I think
sharing
so
your
important.
screen? Can you
Right.
stop sharing screen?
Me?
Yes, Bharat.
Okay, hold on.
Now, I have two hypotheses and two questions, if I may.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I know what this insulin resistance syndrome is caused by. I think the main factor is suggested itself in the name. Okay, it's called insulin resistance syndrome and stands for IRS.
Yes.
Okay, and please feel free to quote me in your next lecture. IRS is the main cause of the insulin resistance syndrome, and it's very correlated. See, higher the taxes you have to pay, that means you are richer, according to the Democrats, and that's why
Yeah.
the calorie intake and calorie output model applies to that.
Okay.
Right? Because you are
Yeah.
eating more, and you have servants or whoever are doing your work, your sedentary lifestyle. So that goes hand in hand. So the IRS is itself in the name. Okay. Now,
Yeah.
my second hypothesis is about PUFA. Okay,
Yes.
you mentioned that PUFA, both the PUFA 6 and PUFA 3 are bad, even in the small amounts.
PUFA
Now,
6. PUFA 3 is good.
okay, 3 is
Only
good.
PUFA
Okay, all right. So in our language, PUFA means, Pufi is Foi. Foi, you
Right.
know Foi.
Yeah,
And
I know.
PUFA is the Foi's husband.
PUFA.
Okay, Fua. So
Yeah.
PUFA is bad. I mean, we know that, Foi is always good. So I did not know about this PUFA thing. the question, it leads me to ask two questions. One, you said in your last slides that if you want to be in the elite group, your HDL should be 60 or above. Okay.
Right.
All right. And LDL doesn't matter, right? But
Right.
HDL, in my opinion, is very hard to raise to that level unless it is you are good genetically. People say, or some doctors suggest, do more exercise and drink more red wine, and your HDL will
No,
go up. So I want to
that's not
know
true.
your opinion about that. Yeah.
So that's not true. So we were all told that HDL you cannot raise, it's genetically set. No, if your triglycerides goes down, your HDL will go up. It is just such a correlation. So you will see once you improve your metabolic health, you will see your triglyceride will drop and HDL will go up.
So what should be
And
the
don't have to be that
ideal?
certainly one ideal. I mean, 1-to-1 is ideal, but I mean it's hard. But that's why because elite, you don't have to be elite, but 1-to-1 is ideal. But
Okay.
as your triglyceride drops, your HDL will go up.
So the final question I have is about statins. I'm pretty sure most of us present here are on some kind of statins. So what is the role of statins? Do you think that is
yes.
helpful, or we should
No,
not take it?
so that's like I have a whole lecture I can do that. So statin I used to take it myself. I stopped it.
Okay.
So the primary prevention means if you never had coronary events, right? The benefits are absolutely minuscule and it's not worth it, because the main study they cited was the original simvastatin study called 4S study. That was they said 30% reduction in coronary disease event, right? 30% or whatever they were saying. So it's very, very looks good. So what was it in the control? Out of 100, 1% had coronary event, and in statin 1.3% had a coronary event. You understand what I'm saying? So it was a relative risk. So they're all pharmaceutical, they always claim relative risk, absolute risk. So if you said, oh, only one, so out of 1,000, 10 people will get a heart attack, right? In the control, let's say. And in the other one, about 13 people will get a heart attack if you take
So I have a question for you.
So it's not useful. It's secondary prevention. If you have coronary, it's maybe worth it, but the benefit, the risks are so bad and the benefits are minuscule. 1 to 1.3. That's not even so. Absolute risk is very, very low. Improvement, absolute improvement is very low. So I would not recommend.
Yeah. So if I do
Bharat,
that, if I go to my PCP and tell him that Dr. Bharat Desai recommends me stopping, do you think he will have a heart attack?
Yeah, absolutely. He will not. It's just like he will say, "Oh no, you're going to die," because many times LDL. If you are some of this perfectly elite, if you are an elite column, right, with all those, your LDL could be very high, about 200-300. They call lean mass hyperresponder. So, and their arteries, coronary will be pristine, clean. And if they go to doctors, oh my God, you're going to drop dead, right? To 300 LDL, nothing happens. So that's the reason.
How about the other cardiologists in the group, say?
Yeah, that's what I wanted, everybody's opinion. And
Deepak and Chandresh also does that, or who?
So Chandresh is there. Yeah.
I'm listening, and I gotta tell you, I mean, it's not entirely clear to me, everything that I heard today.
Yeah.
And I'm understanding some of the things here. I believe that statin has helped me. I have a family history of premature coronary artery disease related to death. And I have been able to do a little more because of lifestyle management, probably statin, and maybe a little bit of luck. Who knows? But I think statins do help. I think I have seen evidence, even clinical practice, when people who are given statin, it helps with stabilization of vascular disease. I think the plaque theory and stabilization does seem to have an appeal. I think it does help. in that. So I actually, am reluctant to say
No,
that the
so I think
evidence
you're
still.
right. The pleiotropic effect is there, so there is no question about. So the stabilization, and it does have anti-inflammatory. So that is there, and that probably reason there's some benefit, whatever. But the benefit from lowering cholesterol are kind of iffy. But it's difficult now. If somebody has high risk, then definitely it's but I don't want to recommend everybody to stop it. But I'm just giving you what I have learned,
No, I
and there
think
is a
there are
whole
number of great points you are making. I think
yes.
the
But
instability of saturated of unsaturated, polyunsaturated, monounsaturated fat in cooking has been demonstrated by others also.
yeah, yeah,
And so ghee versus olive oil or ghee
yeah,
versus vegetable oil cooking,
yeah.
that I have
I think
read articles on that also. I think that saturated fat component does make an argument. I know Chitu has been making an argument about that, and everybody in the keto concept, there is
yes,
an argument that eliminate carbohydrate and that helps you. Uh, I find that even the keto argument goes a little extreme, and I think that if you were to keep adding fat and neglect carbohydrates are important also, I believe.
oh yeah. Yeah.
And so I think that you are taking some edge off the fear of the saturated fat. I think that is good.
That's it.
And I think it is helpful. I think the overall message of being with the wholesome food, I think it is the right message.
Yeah.
And it may be difficult for some. I'm not so sure whether us who were grown up as vegetarians and we can include animal fat in our diet and how we will fare, right? I don't know. I don't know the answer of that question, right? I mean, we grew up, generation vegetarian, right? Except for milk, we were basically, having plant products, in our life, right? And so how we will do with the Western diet, like, with fish and, and meat and all of that, I don't know that, right? So anyway, let me just have others comment.
I mean, I think from
dairy
my
and
standpoint, I think that we all remember that story of 7 blind men and elephant. You go ahead and
exactly. Yes.
so everybody has their own little kind of
Absolutely.
favorite thing to do. Somebody will go with nutrition, and even in nutrition, some say carbohydrate, others say fat.
Yes.
Then there are other big group which say for chronic diseases, the diet is just a fuel, the grain, I mean, nutrition is the fuel. But what does it fuel? And the second part is chronic inflammation. That's
Yep.
how does it get kind of continuously going on. That's where nutrition plays part, maybe in doing something to chronic inflammatory process. Then there is how does it get stimulated by different antigen that may be diet related, and that may have some carbohydrates may have very significant or specific antigens doing it. But the third
Yeah.
thing recently, why I'm saying this is recently I heard something about bacteria and insulin resistance or bacteria and diabetes. Anybody had heard about
I
it?
never. I didn't.
Now,
No.
I'm sure people have learned about microbiome or
Right.
bacteria in the gut and different
But
bacteria.
I think,
causing
Manoj, there is actually oral hygiene, especially the gum,
yeah.
hygiene, and the bacteria in the
Yeah.
gum have a strong connection to cardiovascular disease, right? So I would say that, oral hygiene, generally, like, we did not grow up in India with flossing as very, very common, right?
Yeah.
And I would say that periodontal disease, and
Yep.
plaque disease in the teeth, as well as like a concomitant infection has connection to the cardiovascular disease
Yes,
as
the
well as other
bacteria will cause
autoimmune,
chronic inflammation.
as well as other
I mean,
autoimmune
ultimate
disorders.
thing may turn out to be related to immune system some way.
Yeah.
And then diet plays some part, bacteria and all those different things. Yeah, but I was just asking if anybody has known specifically about, I mean, oral hygiene is known for a long time associated with chronic heart disease. but
Anybody
not yet.
familiar with masala study? You may be aware of Manoj, masala study that was done and is ongoing actually
Yeah.
by some of the authors who made presentation to the RP physicians.
Yes, yes.
It was specifically focused on Indian Americans as well as South Asians. A good study, Anyway, I don't have enough to talk about, that one as far as
Chitu wants to
conclusion.
say something.
Chitu, yeah. Chitu, what do you say? What are you saying?
Chitu, you raised your hand.
Where
Can
is
you
it?
hear me? Can you hear me, Manoj?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So I think in my experience, for secondary prevention, statin is must. So I've
Yes.
seen so many patients who don't control their cholesterol, the restenosis and recurrence of MI because of they don't stabilize the plaque, and also the progression of disease and restenosis after stenting is much higher. So everybody should be on statin for secondary prevention. Primary prevention, if you have multiple risk factors, family history, diabetes, hypertension, I put them for on the statin.
Good to know. Yeah, everybody I think
Chitu?
agrees for secondary prevention. For primary
Yes.
prevention is still iffy. Chitu, you want to say something?
Chitu?
Unmute
Yes,
yourself.
I think statins are approved for only, I mean, should be used only in familial hypercholesterolemia because it is not the LDL. Like if you reduce your LDL, you die early because that is the research currently is saying. Because LD is a part of the immune system. So you overall other causes of death are related to lowering that LDL. The important thing is very, very low density fat in our blood that gets glycated. And glycation is the problem. So problem is, see, our blood, total blood 100 milligram per 100 ml blood. So we have total 5 gram of sugar in our body. That is like 1 teaspoonful of sugar. But 100 milligram of rice has 77. And okay, sorry, I'll have to take Hema's phone. Hema is out, so I'll be back.
Okay.
Bharat, other thing I want to ask you is about frying food in the vegetable oil. I think that's the worst thing, right?
That's the worst thing, yes.
Yeah.
That is the worst. And another thing, so what is oxidation is by light, oxygen, and heat, right? Those three things oxidize the oils. That's why the olive oil is in the dark green bottle, right? So as the oil stands longer, it's going to oxidize. If you heat, if you multiple, like in India, the bhajia, eat same oil you use 4 or 5 times, that's almost like poison. Yeah. Like in McDonald's, I was so the fries, I mean, they change oils. They're supposed to change certain time officially, but nobody changes. So I think McDonald's may be changing. So if they 2 or 3 times they use that oil and fry in that, so it's not a potato, is that oil is a problem.
Correct.
And like we went to one, it's so funny. A month or 2 ago, me and my wife we said, let's try Mexican pizza at Taco Bell, right? Now, we haven't had it. So we ordered and it was stale. I said, oh my God. So we asked, hey, this is stale. Oh, sorry. Let me change the oil. That means they were changing
something, and then after Kirit, Chitu again.
Yes.
Kirit,
so
let's just get everything done quickly now. So getting a little late.
Yeah, I think it's time we got to leave too.
Yeah. Kirit,
you have something.
Unmute yourself.
Unmute.
You have to unmute. Okay.
Yeah, good.
Okay. So my question is for LDL, lowering the LDL, do you go by coronary calcium score? Because a lot of my patients, if they have a high LDL and if their coronary calcium score is high, I try to put them on statin, regardless of. So, what is your take on coronary CT coronary calcium score?
Deepak, you want to go?
Yeah, I think once you do the CT scan and your calcium score is high, you already know that this patient has already started atherosclerosis.
So I tend
So
to
now
put
you
them
are
on.
going for
Yes.
Yeah,
for
go
a
ahead.
secondary prevention. So you definitely want to put this patient on statin. I agree with you. This patient should be on statin and aspirin.
What is the high score?
I think the high score is very high is 300. Anything above 80 is very significant.
Because in the elite group, I think Bharat wrote score was less than
Zero.
5 or 5 to 10 or.
I
No, but
think it
that's
was
like a
zero.
very yeah. Zero
No,
is
no, no.
zero is a
So
so
for
zero is good.
for an average person, what is the coronary score?
Less than 30?
Less than 30. Okay. Because people, I mean, I'm not a cardiologist
Basically,
or internist or anybody, but they
basically,
asked, my score was this, is it high? And I said, I have no idea.
How much? How was it?
I'm not sure. This other guy was asking me about it.
Right.
I haven't done. I'm going to do it. But
Yeah.
what? And I
No,
agree
I
with
did
Deepak.
it my
So
score because before I was going to run marathon, they said, well, you should have yourself checked by cardiologist and make sure you don't need this and that. And my cardiologist said, Manoj, you are going to be on statin. I said, no, I'm not. I don't have any problem. Everything is fine. No family history, cholesterol normal, blood pressure normal. And I said, no, Indians all have little high coronary score, so I'm going to have you do CT coronary score. And it came 0. So they said, oh,
Yours was zero?
zero score.
That's
yeah, that is
excellent. That is
perfect.
normal. That is
That's
normal.
perfect. So
I'm
that is
looking
like
in the.
yes.
Right,
Sorry,
right.
go
That
ahead.
is normal. But then she said, even it is 5, I will start you on statin.
No.
I mean, therefore I was asking what is high score. And I thought high score was in hundreds.
More than
Yeah,
100 is the high
more than
score.
100.
Yeah,
More than
100 to 400 is the high
cardiologist
score.
said more than even 5, I will start you on statin.
yeah. And that I disagree with that
Yeah,
statement. I mean, it's everybody has their own opinion.
yeah. Chitu can finish his thought.
Yeah, એટલે
Which is
important thing is glycation, oxidative stress. You know, we talk about calcium in the arteries, but where the hell it comes from? Why? You know, when your body becomes acidic, calcium is the. See, there are two emergencies in the body: blood glucose and acidic body. So, calcium is used by body to neutralize that acid, and then extra is deposited. See, we have got it. See, all the COVID deaths occurred in the countries where people eat flour. In Vietnam, Korea, Japan, Taiwan, there were hardly any COVID deaths. 90% of them were obese. But we don't want to look at the science because anybody who talks against our beliefs, it causes cognitive dissonance. See, there is one resonance and there is dissonance. So we don't remain scientific. See, to be scientific, we have to go into our chitta, which is a quiet, thoughtless mind. But we go into mana and then we become emotional. So things go into body. Bharat, if I call you a fool, immediately your jaw will tighten. But you will not go to your in chitta and say that मैं मूर्ख खल कामी, but you call me only fool. Thank you, Chitu, for 66% discount. See, we have every time cortisol is secreted in our body, the effect lasts for 3 to 6 hours. It makes up. So this oxidative stress, this free radicals, this glycation, nutrition is a very small part of all this. But grains are bird feed. They are high octane fuel because birds fly against gravity. And we have been like, once you make a flour, the whole grain doesn't remain whole grain. So those fibers and all this is bullshit. Grain, there are other 4 type of grains. I mean, carbohydrate like seeds, flowers, vegetable, legumes you can eat. But grain is not a human diet, and it is very hard. I may be murdered for saying this. Many people have suffered for saying right things. As you said, the guy who said wash hands had to die in asylum at the age of 36, Bharat.
Yeah.
So you can be
So-
murdered, or if you make it big, your life will be threatened, Bharat.
So Chitu, can I pick up on your glycation theory? Just how the glycation is important and factor in